Hello and welcome to another episode of the Modern Practical Guide to a Positive Full Life Now, aka The Selfish Guide, with your host, me, your go-to friend. Today we have a special episode with a very good friend of mine, Rohan. We're going to be talking about the money video, and he's going to have some questions for me. So without further ado, Rohan, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate it, buddy. I'm Rohan. I'm Carlos's friend. I've known him since 2013, 2014. So been a while. I myself am a cybersecurity professional by trade, I guess. My education has been in international politics, I guess, which is why I watched the money video and had a whole bunch of questions for this guy. So so hopefully this will be an interesting conversation, and let's dive right into it, Carlos. What about financial planning apps? So have you ever considered using them? I know banks have this. I know
Mhm.
a lot of a lot of the investment agencies have this. They're also private financial planning apps. I have my beef with them. I don't think they're very good. That's because partly because I consider myself fairly savvy enough. So I have my Excel sheet. So at any given point, I can tell you 6 months out what's going to be in my bank balance. And if the numbers are off, I'm usually like, what happened here, right? Like, and it doesn't happen often, but like, and usually it's in the positive side because I always overestimate how much I spend. But again, I have taken a look at financial planning apps. They're very hit or miss. So what is your recommend? I mean, if someone who's maybe not as savvy, is that a viable option? What have you used them? What do you think of them?
I've used a couple, and what I will say is there's some very, very good ones. But ultimately, like any tool, if you have to trust it and do it, right? For example, if you buy dumbbells to work out and yet you never work out, they're not going to be useful for you, right? It's the same thing. If you get these apps and you use them, um, and you're right, some of them are going to cater more to certain types of people and other types of people. But there's very good ones out there. But the thing is, you have to use them, and it's work because you have to input all this stuff and give them access to all your accounts and do all this stuff.
Which is unnerving. Yeah.
It is a little nerve, I will admit, um, but if you do your research and there's a lot of reputable companies out there and there's lots of good programs. I'm not going to recommend one because, like I said, I think that this is a personal decision. Like saying, what's your favorite type of cheese? It's different for everybody. You know what I mean? And some people hate cheese, right? So it's even more difficult. Financial planning apps are good and they're very useful as a tool to help you gain a better understanding and control of your finances. But you have to choose to allow it to make a difference in your life. And you have to actually use it consistently. And if you don't, then they're not going to be very useful. It's part of the reason I think that they struggle in reference to, one clear winner. You know what I mean? There's definitely lots of advantages, and it depends on you which is going to best fulfill your needs. And so if you are thinking about it and you're struggling, then I would definitely encourage people to try them out because what do you have to lose, right? Assuming you're not
Yeah.
doing something dodgy and some, unheard of thing. Assuming you do a little research and you're like, oh, these guys are reputable, they've been around for a while. Try it but really try it and see if it helps. What helped me, I tried one, I tried two actually, and I was like, oh, I like this, I like that, and then I started incorporating that in my own system, like yours, that's more manual, and I'm able to go through it and figure it out percentage wise, and but that works for me, right? But the app was very helpful in reference to getting me to look at all the different components and at the same time think of different ways of using them to better assist myself in making financial decisions. But yeah, they're good. They're out there, and I would highly recommend people using them, especially if they're struggling. But don't dismiss them if they don't work. If you're not fully giving them a try, it's like saying, "I want to do this, but I'm not going to really put on effort because if I fail, I'm scared to fail." You have to give them the full effort that they need.
Like a trial period, like 3 months or 4 months.
Yeah, I would say it is. I would say 3 months is probably a good indicator of whether it works. And the other thing is, after 3 months, you're just like, it's okay, try another one, and keep doing that. And until you figure out one that you're like, I'm confident in this, and I feel comfortable in this, and I trust it. Or like I said, you can just end up developing your own type of system. It's maybe more work, but you have a much more, a better understanding, and you're empowered because of yours. Um, Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Well, thanks. I guess this was, I think, one of the last ones that I had. is a method of saving on the line, like things like meal planning. I mean I noticed this personally. Is like, I mean, you know me in Nairobi, I used to eat all three meals outside. What, that was a disaster. Like, I don't know. In hindsight, man, that was, I didn't know how to cook. Now I make biryani by myself. Like, this is some
Uh,
next level stuff. I know. So I mean, a kitchen space is super important to me. I make all three meals from Sunday through Thursday. Friday, Saturday, I eat out. Again, percentage of style, man. Like, like I'm like, listen, I don't wanna like, I know the meal plan serves a purpose of keeping me on diet, keeping calories, like, but on 2 days, I want to go out. I want to eat things that I don't get to eat at home. It's also a socialization, right? You have friends, so you go out, so you cannot keep meal plan anyway. So I might as well make the most of it. What I found the biggest advantage was it was a big money saver doing so like the Sunday through Thursday. It's a guaranteed. It's a and it was in. I wish I'd known this. Well, I guess when you're younger, you're not really thinking about these things. You're more like, I want to eat all the stuff I couldn't eat at home when I was for 20 odd years. My parents made me eat rice and dal.
yeah.
No. So what is your opinion on the cost saving mechanisms like a meal plan or I don't know, other things?
I think they're very good, and I think like it really comes down again to personal things. Is if meal plans make sense to you, then great. I think meal plans for saving the money work for everybody, but it's more about like, are you really going to follow suit? I know people who try meal planning, they do it for a month and then they just don't ever do it again. It's like a diet, right? You can't
Yeah.
go around life, in my opinion, having different diets all the time. If you truly believe that something's beneficial nutrition wise or to your health, then you incorporate it into your life permanently, right? And that's that. It's the same thing with financial mechanisms that help you save money. You need to be okay with the idea of indefinitely doing meal planning. And if you are, great. And like I said before, meal planning is one of the greatest things you can save money in. And because and again, some people think of meal planning as you're going to be eating cardboard, right? Not literal, but metaphorically, you're going to be eating cardboard. And to that, I would say you can go to the grocery store, and when stuff's going to go bad, they're going to sell it. And you can buy fresh, produce. And I mean, fresh in the sense it's about to go bad, but you could do stuff for them. Even the bruised tomato box, you know what I mean? You can make tomato sauce. You can make a bunch of stuff out of it, and you're gonna buy it at a huge discount. You're gonna, what I would do when I was younger, I'd go to markets, and I would at the end I would go around and I would see it like, how much would you sell me that whole box of ugly tomatoes that no one wanted? And it's amazing. You
It
buy
tastes the
tomatoes.
same.
Yeah, that's the thing. And yeah, if you leave them bruised, they're going to go black relatively quickly. But if you go home that same day or the next day and just start, making them all into tomato sauce or whatever you want, then you're going to save 90% on those tomatoes. You're going to have something healthy, and you're going to be able to do it at home. But like you said, it takes effort, it takes time, and I think a lot of people, they just don't. And there's lots of reasons for it, and that's why it comes down to what are the reasons holding you back and addressing those. If you have a problem with eating, with not eating out, then it's not going to work for you because you're never going to fully accept it, and you're never going to actually give it its fair shot, and you're never going to learn
Yeah.
how to say.
And
So
and and
yeah.
from me personally, I started doing it one by one, right? It was breakfast first, then lunch, and then it became all three. I didn't start all one day. I didn't wake up and I was like all three meals in the hat. Like, that was not how it started. It started very slowly over a long period of time as it's gotten to this point. I mean, you know me from Nairobi. You know my passion for eating out. So so no, yeah. I mean,
There's
like
nothing wrong with
I
eating out. In all fairness, it's good. It's easy. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about cleaning.
and in
It tastes
cities
good.
like New York, it's cheaper to eat out than making your own food.
Yeah, and you raise a good point, and that's that. Sometimes food prep isn't the best option, but that's why I say it really depends on you. Usually it is, but there are a few exceptions to that. But again, you have to make the conscious decision. And sometimes when you reach a certain point where financially you feel comfortable, it's not going to be, the financial value being the number one. It's going to be maybe your health, and so you're going to put maybe spending more money over your health than saving. But again, that's a decision you have to make. It has to be something that you own, because if you don't, and something you just do it because someone told you, you're going to stop, and then you're going to revert back to your old habits. So you truly have to believe in the value you're bringing and making that decision of using that tool or mechanism, and then you'll follow through with it. And this goes for all the financial things. Choose the things that you're gonna follow through with, because if you don't, it's a waste of time. And you know,
Agreed.
there's lots of good feelings and good intentions and all this stuff, but if they lead to nothing, then most of my guides come back to that thing, and that's ultimately it's about doing something now, not blaming the past or waiting for the future, but just doing it now. With money, like compound interest is a perfect example. Now, whatever it is, you can complain as you wish you were 20 when you figured it out. You can complain you wish you were 30 when you figured it out. But the thing is, there's never the better time than right now to just get up, move. And I'm not telling you that right now just go invest on your money right away. You know what you're doing, right? But I'm telling you, set the clear path. If you say I want to invest my money, what is the next step there, right? Okay, I have to figure out where I'm going to invest. Okay, what does that mean? Do I have some income? Can I hire a financial advisor? Maybe a one-time consultation to try to help me situate myself and ground myself. Am I in that good position? Am I not? And who can I reach to? Can I find someone like a financial mentor that can help me through it and not have to pay them? Or is it something as simple as all I got is $100 to invest? And I would say run with those $100, man. Invest those $100. It's better to invest $100. Those $100 is like when you're 20, it's like investing $1,000 when you're 50. So it's worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately it just comes to about you actually following through and doing it. And that means you have to be a little excited about it. You have to have some understanding. You have to put in the time. So that's what I have to say to meal planning. That's usually it's very good and you can save a ton of money, but it's about you buying into it and then following through with it, whether it's going to give you the results you want or not.
All right, Carlos, that was very good, man. Appreciate it. I believe that's the end of my questioning. How are you doing? Do you have some more time?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to touch base on is you brought up a point that in life you need debt, that there's no way you can ever come out of it because you have a house, you have a car. And to that, I would say that yes and no. There's two types of debt, right? It's like if I take out a loan on a house, right, and I pay, let's pretend for the sake of easiness, I know it's probably impossible, but I pay $100,000 for a house, right, a loan, right? I get it, let's say 5% interest, right? If I rent that house, ideally I've done my math, I figured out what demand is in that city, I know what I can rent it for, right? In this instance, right, I have a $100,000 loan that I'm paying 5% a year, but I know that when I rent it out, after I fix it up and I invest a little more money, that I can be getting, 15, 20% return on my investment. And that maybe after 5 years, I will have paid off, I will have paid it off, including the 5%. Then I would say that's not a debt in the sense of what most people think about it. And I'm trying to make a distinction between you having a house and it being debt and you living in it, so you're not making any money, right? And then there's debt where you make an asset that's making you money, right? It's like we talked about before in reference to if you take out a loan of $1,000 and you're paying 5% on it, but you can make 10% on average, and you feel very confident and you understand the risks for it, then that means you're making 5%. That means you're making you 5% on your investment. That is not debt. I mean, it is debt in the sense that you owe that money back, but at the end of the year, you're coming out ahead. And that to me is not the debt that most people think about when they think about debt.
Sure.
So there's a very important distinction there, right? If you get a car and your car just gives you bills and mechanics, bills and maintenance, and getting checkups and all that
Fuel.
stuff, then yeah, it's just you're going to be under that debt. But if you get a car and then lease it out or rent it out, that's not the same. It's not the same because you have an asset that's making you money. The same thing with like a stock. If you have a stock and it's giving you a dividend, that's not that's good, right? It's an asset making you money, and that's a step, even further in the sense that you don't have to pay it back. But even if you did, if you took out, $100 loan, bought a stock for $100, and every, year you get back, I don't know, $10 on it, right? And you're only paying $5, and it's the same thing. It's a different example, but the same numbers. You're going to be making $5 a year. This is good, right? But it's not. It's debt technically, but it's not debt in the usual sense that people think about it. So it's very important to have two distinctions in reference to debt.
Sure, yeah, good debt and bad debt is definitely a distinction. But again, like I guess the issue here is differentiating it. Not all student loan is good student loan because ultimately education is an investment that you make, right? It is a there's a cost benefit analysis to it. And I can definitely speak personally. Like I have benefited from it in the future, but there were times when I definitely questioned whether or not it was worth it. And again, I do firmly believe education is what you put into it, and it's not a degree that you buy and you expect result right away. It's an investment that you make. It pays dividends over time, much like anything else. It's hard to know. Same thing with buying a house too. Like, yes, I personally know people who purchased investment properties, rented it out, and had so much renter damage that it didn't make sense. So you have the other. It is a risk. Of course, this is a risk that you have to again go into it knowingly. So it's the good bad debt is easy when the scenario is simple, but life is not simple. It's complicated. So yeah. So what do you have to say for that? What do you
What
when?
I'll say to that is life rewards those who do. And you are completely right. That is a risk out there, right? But if you have $100, right, and you put it under the mattress, you might as well be burning, $2 because on average governments want 2% inflation, and that's what's happening to your money. You're burning it, right? If you go and put into an investment that could make you 5, 10%, then it's a risk, right? The market might go horrendous, like it has in the past. But the thing is, what you have to bank on is time. Being young is the biggest advantage you can have. And when you look at the stock market in like the US, on average, it goes up. Even during the Great Depression, during this corona, everything, it's going to go up. Why? Because it has a trajectory like this, right? So if you bank on that, then you are in a good place overall. It is risky, but what you want to do is move away from risky assets, and that goes to just an overall planning of your retirement with your savings. So when you're young, invest in things that are going to give you, 20, 30% potentially even if they're risky, right? Because again, worst case scenario, they all go bad and you declare bankruptcy. It sucks, but you can do that, right? But most likely than not, they're not all going to go bad. Some are going to do well some years and other ones going to do better. But overall, if you do it right, you're going to have an upward trajectory. You're going to have massive gains some years. Other years, you're going to have massive losses. But overall, when you trace it, you're going to have massive gains. And the difference is in your 20s, you're going to be gaining like this. It's going to be going like this every year, like crazy, but it's going to be going like this. In your 30s, it starts to flatten out a little bit, right? It's still going
Yeah.
to be bouncing around a lot. And the difference there in investments is you're not investing in like, you know, you risk your stock. You start moving over to like A-rated stock in reference to the
Blue
risk.
chip.
It's less risky. You're gonna blue chips. It's like that where you're gonna be making money, but it's gonna be more secure and it's less of a volatility in reference to every year. And then in your 40s you start going even a little more, and then you start. And by the time you're in your 60s, it's practically flat where you're
Federal
gonna be.
bond.
Exactly, because the federal bond is going to ideally give you 2% or 3%, and your inflation is going to take away 1 to 2%. So you're going to be making about maybe 1% or maybe nothing. But it doesn't matter because you're going to want to put that money to use very, very soon. And it's better to have the money there, secure. In other words, it's like saying, I want to have the cash already on hand when I'm ready to retire. But when you're young, you don't need to have it ready on hand. And so there's things like that where you can adjust your risk to make it appropriate for where you're at in life.
Yeah, and,
So
and I always keep a mixed portfolio. I mean, if you invest with a reputable organization and you're not too like I'm not I mean, I know chances are if I put the thought, time, and effort, I probably could make investment choices on my own, but that just takes too much time, effort that I just don't have, nor do I have the interest. So what I do is I mean, so my employer does investments for me, so I definitely do the matching. I max out on the matching. That's something I learned. Like my former employer, that was the first employer where I had real benefits. Before that, I was a consultant at the UN. Pro tip to everybody: don't work as a consultant at the UN. But other than that, if you do have an employer that does offer you matching, always take the max matching. I do agree with you. I saw you also mentioned that, and it's because that's money you will not get otherwise.
pretty much,
So yeah, it does. Your paycheck may suck a little bit because the pay it is a little lower on the other end, but you are actually gaining a full 100% on the other end because they're matching that percentage. And that's money you will never see if you don't take it. So that's I do agree. And of course, if it's with a reputable employer, you'll have a investment house backing it up, so you get a nice portfolio. Make sure that and they have an app that sort of tells you based on your age and your target what percentage and you can of course adjust that. So keeping a mixed portfolio is always good. That's kind of where I'm at as well.
No,
So
I
I'm glad.
think that that's smart, and it sounds like you figured out a system that works for you. I would say it just depends on the individual. I know some individuals who are just completely scared and out of the depth when it comes to anything financial. And to those people, I always say at the bare minimum, invest in a year-date fund. And those are very, very simple. They're ideally invest in something that is from a nonprofit if possible. For example, Vanguard, I use that example a lot because I have quite a bit of investment with them, but they're a nonprofit bank. And you know that, they're not going to be charging fees and consultants and all this other stuff because they're trying to keep it, they're trying to just keep it running, right? And all banks have this type of investment where you say a year. Let's say you want to retire in 2050, then you buy a fund in 2050. The thing we talked about where you go from stocks to maybe bonds to the government bonds and so on and so forth, they do this automatically and they give you a return on average per year depending on where you're at in your life, how close you are to that end date. So what you can do, and you can also put there any money I make, reinvest it into the same fund. And the great thing about this is once a year, you just go, you buy it, and it just does everything by itself. You pay a fee because you have to pay, I think, what depends on the bank you're using, but maybe $10. And then you put all your money that you want to invest for that year into the fund and wait till next year. And it's just doing that everything automatically. So that's for somebody who just doesn't want to touch a really expensive. Well, do that at the very least because it's better than putting in a savings account. Savings accounts are giving you
It's a
1% point
joke.
something percent. And if you just keep it in cash, you might as well just be burning your money because it's not doing anything. Um, but again, it's just the main thing about all this is start talking about money, start having a conversation about money because the more understanding, the less power it has. It takes away from its, scariness to lore. It's kind of like the monster, you just see the shadow. But then when you see it, it's not that bad. It's actually not scary at all. And the more you become familiar with it, it's not scary in the slightest, right? It's just a new thing that you didn't understand, and so that's why you're scared of it. We need to have more conversations. We need to take away this taboo feeling with our community, with our family, friends, colleagues. We should be comfortable. And it's been shown that those people who talk about how much they make in a company that are more empowered, they actually make more money, they're actually in a better position because they understand how the system works. Just imagine you're in a system and you don't know, you want to get ahead, but you don't know how, and you don't know who's ahead and who's behind. It's ridiculous, right? You might as well talk about it, you might as well understand and be like, hey, what is that individual doing? Why are they so far ahead? And then that's easy, right? And again, no one walks around and be like, this is how much money I have saved up. But if you really
Oh, I
know,
know a couple. I know a
well,
couple
you
of people.
can, right? And that's the thing, what you see is not always what you get, right? You might see them spending a lot, but they're completely in debt. And so they're not actually financially savvy.
Oh,
They're
exactly.
spending all
Yeah.
their money. So again, it's about having a conversation and figuring out what works for you. No matter what, if you're talking about it, you're going to have a much better just overall feeling towards your finances. But if you figure out what works for you and you do it. Again, you gotta do it. You do it now, you're gonna be better. There's no way you're gonna be worse off, especially if you're young, because the lessons you learn, even from the failures, are going to be just drastically change in how you will invest in the future because you will have learned from them and you will have learned very, very, very important lessons. So yeah, that was the only thing. I wanted to thank you for your time. I know we went over a little bit, but I really appreciate it. I always say, time is the greatest gift you can give anybody, and because you can't get it back and you only get to use it once. So thank you again for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
No worries.
Um,
Thank Carlos. Thanks for having me, buddy.